It's 40,000 years ago. You wake up in a cave. Your hair is down to your shoulders. Your beard is a bird's nest. Your fingernails are basically claws at this point. And somewhere, deep in your prehistoric brain, a thought forms. This has to go. Not because of vanity, not because you saw it in a magazine, because untrimmed hair, matted beards, and long nails were, historically speaking, a survival liability. This is the story of how ancient humans dealt with hair, beards, and nails, long before razors, scissors, or nail clippers existed. And the answer involves flint, seashells, obsidian, tweezers made from clamshells, and one Roman emperor who was so obsessed with his own baldness that it became a matter of state record. Let's start at the beginning, because the beginning is weirder than you think. Humans, unlike almost every other primate, grow scalp hair that just keeps going. It doesn't stop at a fixed length the way body hair does. Left alone, human hair can grow for years, sometimes over 6 feet long. That's not an accident. Some researchers believe long, manageable head hair had a purpose, protecting the scalp from sun exposure while still allowing heat to escape, unlike a full body coat. But manageable is the key word. Hair that grows past a certain length starts working against you. It gets tangled in branches, it gets grabbed in a fight, it collects parasites, dirt, and moisture, which in a world without antibiotics was not a minor inconvenience. It could freeze in cold climates or trap heat in hot ones right when you needed the opposite. So, very early on, something had to be done about it. The question is what, because scissors didn't exist yet. Not for hundreds of thousands of years. The oldest cutting tools available to early humans were stone. Specifically flint and obsidian, napped into thin, razor-sharp edges. Obsidian in particular is almost unnervingly sharp. A freshly napped obsidian blade can have an edge only a few nanometers wide, sharper than a modern surgical steel scalpel. Some surgeons today actually still use obsidian blades for extremely fine incisions, because steel simply can't match that edge. So when archaeologists say early humans were shaving with stone tools, they don't mean crudely hacking at their faces with a rock. They mean using an instrument that was, in a very real sense, more precise than anything we'd invent again for tens of thousands of years. Evidence of deliberate hair removal goes back a genuinely long way. Cave paintings and carved figurines from as early as 30,000 years ago depict humans with notably short or styled hair, and in some cases clean-shaven faces. That means someone deliberately, with a sharp piece of volcanic glass, was sitting still long enough to scrape hair off their own face without cutting their own throat. That takes patience. That takes trust if someone else was doing it for you. And it strongly suggests hair removal wasn't just practical. It was already becoming social. Let's talk about beards specifically, because the history of facial hair is basically a rotating door of extremes. In ancient Egypt, the relationship with facial hair was almost the opposite of what you'd expect. Egyptian men across nearly all social classes shaved their faces regularly, and shaving was considered a sign of cleanliness and civilization. Egyptian barbers used a combination of copper razors and pumice stones, and by around 3000 BCE, they were producing genuinely refined bronze razors with curved blades. Wealthy Egyptians employed personal barbers, and having a barber was considered a marker of status, not unlike having a personal stylist today. But here's the twist. Pharaohs still wore beards, specifically fake ones. The ceremonial false beard, called a postiche, was worn by pharaohs, and occasionally by female rulers like Hatshepsut, strapped on for religious and royal ceremonies as a symbol of divine authority, even though the pharaoh underneath was clean-shaven. Let that sink in. The most powerful people in Egypt shaved their real beards off and then put on a fake one for special occasions. That's not hygiene, that's branding. Compare that to Mesopotamia, where the exact opposite value system existed. In ancient Sumer and later Babylon, a long, oiled, elaborately curled beard was a symbol of dignity, wealth, and masculine authority. Losing your beard, whether by force or as punishment, was considered a profound humiliation. Assyrian kings are depicted in stone reliefs, with beards so intricately braided and layered they look almost architectural. sometimes taking hours of grooming to maintain. Barbers in Mesopotamia weren't just cutting hair, they were sculpting a public identity, one curl at a time. Now let's jump to ancient Greece, because Greece flip-flopped on this issue more than almost any other civilization in history. For centuries, Greek men wore beards proudly, associating facial hair with wisdom, philosophy, and masculinity. Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, all bearded, all fully committed to the look. Then Alexander the Great came along and ruined it for everyone. Alexander reportedly ordered his soldiers to shave, not for hygiene, but for tactical reasons, because in close combat, an enemy could grab your beard and use it to control your head. A clean-shaven soldier was a soldier who couldn't be grabbed by the face mid-battle. That single military decision triggered a cultural shift, and clean-shaving became fashionable across much of the Hellenistic world almost overnight. Rome inherited this trend and ran with it aggressively. For most of Roman history, a clean-shaven face was the default for respectable citizens, and Roman barbershops called tonsore were major social hubs, where men gathered daily not just to get shaved but to gossip, network, and hear news. Roman razors were made of iron or bronze, and getting shaved by a professional barber was routine, though genuinely risky, since infections from a nicked cut were a real and sometimes fatal concern. There's a reason wealthy Romans tipped their barbers well. A bad shave could actually kill you. Now let's talk about hair on the head, because ancient hairstyling was its own entire universe of tools and techniques. Combs are one of the oldest grooming tools ever discovered, with examples carved from bone, ivory, and wood dating back over 8,000 years. Some of the oldest known combs come from ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, and they weren't just functional, they were often decorated, engraved, and clearly treated as valuable personal objects. Cutting hair itself, before metal scissors existed, was done primarily with sharpened flint blades or obsidian, the same tools used for shaving. Bronze Age civilizations eventually developed early bronze scissors and shears, though these were expensive and remained a luxury item for centuries, meaning most ordinary people were still cutting hair with a sharpened blade well into more advanced eras. In ancient Rome, elaborate hairstyles became a genuine status symbol, especially for women. Wealthy Roman women employed slaves called ornatrices, whose entire job was styling hair, sometimes spending hours constructing towering, curled arrangements held together with pins, nets, and specially formulated setting pastes. Roman hair dye existed too, and it was, frankly, terrifying by modern standards. Some Roman hair dyes contained lead and were used to darken hair, while others used plant-based formulas involving walnut shells or henna to achieve different shades. Blonde hair specifically became fashionable at points in Roman history, partly due to contact with Germanic and Gallic peoples, and some Roman women reportedly wore wigs made from the hair of enslaved Germanic captives to achieve the look. History has a way of being uncomfortable the moment you look closely enough. Now let's get to the part people almost never think about: nails. Because fingernails and toenails left untrimmed become a genuine problem fast. They catch on things. They break unevenly. They harbor dirt and bacteria, and in a world with zero antibiotics, an infected nail bed could spiral into a serious, sometimes fatal, infection. The earliest method of nail maintenance was almost certainly biting, which some primatologists point out is actually observed in other primates too, suggesting this might be one of the oldest grooming behaviors we have, predating tools entirely. But once tools entered the picture, ancient humans got creative. Sharpened flint flakes could trim nails in a pinch, and archaeological evidence suggests early humans also used naturally rough stones to file nails down, essentially inventing the emery board tens of thousands of years before nail salons existed. In ancient Egypt, nail care became remarkably sophisticated. Egyptians used henna to stain their nails, and nail color actually indicated social status, with the wealthy and royalty favoring darker, richer reds, while lower classes were restricted to paler shades. Cleopatra herself reportedly favored a deep rust red, and manicure tools, including small bronze implements for cleaning and shaping nails, have been found in Egyptian tombs, buried alongside their owners for use in the afterlife. That's how important nail grooming was. People wanted good nails in the next life too. In ancient China, nail length actually became a bizarre marker of privilege in the opposite direction. Long fingernails, sometimes protected with elaborate gold or silver nail guards, signaled that a person did no manual labor whatsoever, since obviously you cannot farm, weave, or fight with nails several inches long. Some Chinese nobility grew their nails to genuinely extreme lengths, and the nail guards used to protect them are now considered remarkable pieces of ancient jewelry craftsmanship. Meanwhile, the average farmer trimmed their nails short out of pure necessity, using whatever sharp edge was available. So even nail length became a language, exactly the way clothing did. Short nails said, "I work." Long nails said, "I don't have to." Let's bring this back to the tools themselves, because there's a specific piece of evidence that genuinely surprised archaeologists. In multiple Bronze Age sites across Europe, researchers have found small bronze implements combining a tiny spoon-shaped scoop, a miniature blade, and a pair of tweezers, all attached to a single ring, clearly meant to be worn or carried. These are now referred to as toilet sets, and they represent one of the earliest known portable grooming kits in human history. Someone, thousands of years ago, was carrying around a personal hygiene kit, the ancient equivalent of a keychain multi-tool for your face. Tweezers specifically have an impressively long history, with early versions made from bent bronze or bone used to remove unwanted facial hair, pluck eyebrows, and extract splinters. Ancient Egyptian tweezers found in tombs alongside razors and mirrors suggest a level of daily grooming ritual that wouldn't feel entirely out of place in a modern bathroom cabinet. Which raises an interesting question. Why did any of this matter so much? Why did ancient civilizations across completely unconnected continents independently develop razors, combs, tweezers, and nail tools? The answer circles back to something we've talked about before: social signaling. Grooming wasn't just about comfort or hygiene, though those mattered. It was about communicating status, health, and belonging, instantly, visually, without saying a word. A clean shave said, "I have access to tools and time." An elaborate hairstyle said, "I have wealth," or servants, or both. Trimmed nails said, "I am not currently starving in a field somewhere." In a world without resumes or social media profiles, your grooming was your profile. It told strangers everything they needed to know about you in the first 3 seconds of eye contact. There's also a deeper biological thread running underneath all of this. Grooming, even in non-human primates, serves a critical social bonding function. Chimpanzees spend hours grooming each other, not purely for hygiene, but to build trust, reinforce alliances, and reduce social tension within the group. Some anthropologists argue human grooming, especially communal grooming like hairstyling and shaving, evolved from this exact same instinct, just executed with sharper tools and more elaborate outcomes. When a Roman barber shaved a client, or an Egyptian ornatrix styled a noblewoman's hair, they weren't just performing a service. They were participating in an ancient, deeply wired social ritual that predates civilization itself. So, when did ancient humans start shaving, cutting hair, and trimming nails? The honest answer, much like everything else in this story, is earlier than most people assume, and driven by more than just practicality. It started as basic survival, keeping matted hair and overgrown nails from becoming liabilities in a dangerous world. It evolved almost immediately into status and identity, a way of broadcasting who you were before you ever opened your mouth. And it became, across every civilization we've looked at, an entire industry with dedicated professionals, specialized tools, and rituals that shaped how societies defined beauty, class, and belonging. The next time you shave, cut your nails, or get a haircut, you're participating in one of the oldest continuous grooming traditions in human history. Someone, tens of thousands of years ago, sat very still while a friend held a piece of sharpened volcanic glass near their throat, and trusted them completely. That's not a small thing. That's the whole thing. We groom, we signal, we trust each other with sharp objects near our faces, and somehow we've been doing it since before we had a written language to describe it. So, would you trust someone with an obsidian blade for a shave? Let me know in the comments. Until then, see you soon.